here I am down on the Nene Valley on my syndicate water. Now since my last vlog I've not really been fishing this one at all. This one's a big lake which I spent a lot of my time on. I've been fishing a little water just down the way there called the Car Park Lake. Now it's still on the same complex, still on the same syndicate, but it's a little bit different. The fishing there are quite funny, and there's not too many of them. I first started fishing there, it was back in last summer when I first joined the syndicate. You know, that was the sort of lake I joined for. You know, a fish called Cuttail was one that really caught my imagination and one that I wanted in a photo album. But for one reason or another, I didn't really get into that lake as much as I thought I was going to, and ended up fishing this one a lot more. But I did have a couple of fish that summer. I had a 23 common and a 28 and a half. 28 and a half was a fish called Broken Back. It was spawned out. It's normally a lot bigger than that, but nevertheless I caught it, and it was it's a bit of a character fish, I would put it that way. I did have another little go on there this winter. Started on there in February. You know, turned up and the ice was still all over the lake, and watched it thaw in front of me before I got the rods out. Now I don't know why I tried to fish there in winter. You know, it's hard enough in summer. You know, it's about 5 acres with about 20-25 fish. So as you can imagine, in winter time it's pretty tricky. It's pretty tricky in the rest of the year, never mind winter. But I did go back on there at the start of April. It's a bit of a funny lake. It's quite moody, but you know, with only a few fish in there, it's, you know, they kind of know their environment quite well. So you know, they tend to know that you're fishing for them a lot of the time, which makes life very interesting. One session in particular sticks out in my mind. It was probably early April. It was only about 10 degrees air temperature, so it's quite chilly, but the sun was out, and the two main swims that control the central part of the lake were both taken, and I was a bit unsure where to go. So I went a bit of a walk round, and I ended up having a look in this shallow bay near the car park. I could just make out this shadow under the surface, so I found a nearby tree, got up that, and sure enough, it was one of the nicer fish, one of the sought after fish, was just sitting there under a tree. I think it was a fish called the Triangle, which is about mid-30. And just as I was looking at that, the sun came out and lit up the whole bay, and I counted about 15 fish in there, 15 carp. There was a couple of tench as well. So I was quite keen to fish it. The following day, you know, as the sun started getting up and becoming a little bit strong again, about 10 o'clock, I could see the little boat waves and see the fish just under the surface. So I put 2 rods in the shallows and found a nice little shallow area. But yeah, nothing seemed to happen on that. I was going to move my third into there as well, but about 8:30 in the morning, the fish stuck its head out right over the top of one of the rods in deeper water. You know, a rod fished on a choddy just over a bit of light weed, so I thought it might be worth leaving that if fish like it in that area. And sure enough, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the 2 rods where I'd seen all the fish in the shallow water, completely motionless, and the rod that was still in the deep water went off. You know, just bent round, hooked into this fish. As you can see from the footage, it didn't fight particularly well. It just kind of meandered a little bit on the surface, you know, just kind of milling around. And soon enough, I had it in the net, and as a part of the faulty net, I was quite pleased to see a 30 sitting there. Got him up on the scales, and he went to £30, 12 ounces. And I was pretty sure it was the fish that stuck his head out at 8 o'clock that morning. It was just stayed around the area, or that was an area he wanted to feed on, and probably had most of my free offerings, and the one left on the trolley was the last one to go. Anyway, I was quite pleased to catch that. I was told it was a fish called the Twin, or one of the twins. Didn't know, not what's still not too sure now. It was a big twin or a little twin, but anyway, I slipped it back. The following week, I popped down, didn't find any signs of fish at all. It was overcasting and rain. It was horrible. So I set up in the central part of the lake. Didn't really see a great deal, and nothing really happened. The following week, I got back down again. Similar sort of situation. Nothing really happening, nothing in the shallows, nothing showing. So I dropped in the central part of the lake, and I did see the odd fish, but nothing, you know, nothing too convincing, and nothing in one place. You know, a few fish were drifted into the bay to my right hand side, and just thought my chance had gone. I got a take on my last morning about 10 o'clock out in the middle. The fish weeded me up straight away. You know, it just got me stuck in the quite thick weed that was out there. You know, the weed in the whole complex had stayed quite thick all the way through winter. It's still quite prevalent now. So yeah, it got me weeded up straight away. But the trouble was, the boat was like 400 yards away. The boat's kind of behind me now, whereas you know, I was a few hundred yards up the track. So I gave my mate a ring, and he brought the boat up for me. In the meantime, I managed to get the fish free of the weed. But then I got it in close close, and it wigged me again about 30 yards out. So lucky he did bring the boat really, and the end of the battle was a bit of a boat battle, and eventually I got it in the net, lifted it on board, rode it in, parted the net, and thought, well, that looks like a fish I had a couple of weeks ago, 10 days ago to be precise. And I thought, no, it's called one of the twin commons for a reason. So I weighed it at 30 pound 10 ounces, did the photos, and then compared the photos a bit later, and it was actually the same fish, which is a bit of a strange turn of events. I did a few more sessions down there. Nothing really happened, but I started to see fish in a shallow bay down a little shallow bay called the Keep. They were moving in and out of there. I've been having a little stalk for them, but didn't have a great deal of action, so I've been baiting just outside the bay. Now, over the next 2 or 3 weeks, I don't know if it's the bait that held them outside the bay or it's just a place they wanted to be, but I kept a bit of bait going in each week, not massive amounts, probably about 3 kilo, whatever I'd left at the end of the session. I used to just put in this little bay. I found a few spots out there in front, and put the rest in the weed, and just kind of scattered it around just to get the fish on the bait. I'm fishing with the edge from Eco-Dynamics, and I find it makes all the difference. If you can get a bait established, it can be the difference between blanking and catching, really. And then a few weeks later, I had a quick one-night session. Managed to drop in the swim that controlled this little bay, and the fish were in there in their numbers, but they were unnatural more than bait. But I did get picking up a few baits from the top of the weed. They were being very, very cagey. I think they knew I was fishing for them, basically, so they weren't going to really get their heads down in the bait. They were just picking the odd one up. And I saw one have a look at the other bait, and he was being very, very tentative. Who he was being fished for. So I had a bit of think about the situation, and put a hell of a lot of thought into it about rigs and line and presentation and whatever else, about what I could do to try and outwit these fish in this corner. In between the sessions, again I baited up when I left, and the following week I was back down with a 2-night session in front of me, and basically I put my plan into practice of what I thought I could do to try and outwit these fish. I don't want to go too much into detail because it's all going to be in my diary and big carp, and probably end up being 3,000 words or whatever else, so far too much to talk about on camera. But to cut a long story short, the plan paid off big time. I was up a tree at one point and saw a few fish milling around, and I actually saw the big fish of the lake, my target fish, cut out, drift into the swim with a few others, and had a good look around the swim, and then started feeding on my freebies. And I actually watched it pick up my hook bait and hook itself against the lead. I've got to say, it's a strange thing to hook a fish, knowing exactly which fish you've got from start to finish, knowing that you've got your target fish on. It's quite a nerve-wracking thing, and it was a bit of a rigmarole getting it in through one reason or another. But I managed to land it, got it in, and got it on scales. A bit down in weight, normally it's about 45, and it went 43.4. So I assume it hadn't been feeding in the time, most of the spring. But I was really pleased with the capture. It's a bit of a character fish, got a bit of its tail missing, but it's still a nice looking fish, and I was really, really pleased to get it. Happy days. Oh!
Batter in you.
Oh!
Let's go. Oh, nice.
Yeah, buddy, got him. And I thought about going home in the evening because it was about 6-7 o'clock in the evening by the time I caught it. By the time I'd done it, it was near enough dusk. So I thought, no, I'll stay down, have a couple of celebratory beers and get the rods back out, and I'm glad I did. Because about 1:30 in the morning, got another fish off the same rod, 23 pounds. And then just before dawn, I got yet another one, and this was one of the ones I really wanted as well, along with cuttail. It's a fish called the dumping mirror. Cracking fish, looks prehistoric, and managed to bank him at 34.25 pounds. So I was really, really pleased with that session, and really, really pleased with how I'd thought things out, and how I'd baited up for the good few weeks, and really got something going in that swim, and changed my rigs around, changed my presentation around, and everything else, and yeah, really happy. So if you want to know a bit more about it, then check out Big Carp. The full story will be in there.